This is America's, on your map you'll see this is America's only railroad trolley road crossing in America.
Wow.
Feel suitably impressed, please.
It's the only railroad trolley crossing in America. We're on it right now.
What's left? Yep.
That's interesting.
The Sharon Hill line is the last rural trolley line in America still in regular The Norristown High Speed line is the last interurban trolley line in America still in regular
Yeah, I was on the speed line last week.
Yeah. West Phillips Center to Norristown City Hall, 12 minutes.
Yeah. I took my bicycle on it. I took my bicycle on it.
Oh yeah.
What church is that?
As you want to know the story of the Blue Bell. As you come down here, there'll be a building on your left. Blue Bell Avenue. Scene of a battle during the Revolutionary War. 2,500 British soldiers. 28 American soldiers. It was not a long battle. But
Wait, one email? Yeah, I did one, yes.
More information, darbyhistory.com. Purchased by Fairmont Park around 1900. 1940, they took down the first generation. It's been built around 1800.
You're going to talk about the Depot?
I'm talking about the Blue Bell.
And the mill. And the mill.
On the mill, yes. This is Delaware County here in the mill. In the dam, you'll see
not really. I must have talked to somebody from St. Jude.
The mill, which was built in 1645. That's the first European settlement. The first water-powered mill was yeah. It's hard to see, but if you go like down the line and look down, there's some square holes.
Right there.
Those are the Princess Mill. The Prince was 400 pounds. Well, if we did, on this side there's some rock and there's square holes. If you look like you're playing, yeah, this was the first one. Prince had it built to replace the big mill, which was good for nothing. Yeah.
It's hard, yeah, you have to get off the normal.
But it's there. Callowhill Library, which is the Carnegie Library. Across from that is the site of Summit Army Hospital, which I think was the African American hospital. If you ever look at this William Still's petition drive to desegregate trolleys, he mentioned Civil War soldiers at Summit Hospital. Families couldn't visit them because they couldn't afford to hire a carriage.
Right.
Unfortunately, African Americans were not allowed to ride inside the cars.
They were saying up there.
Yeah, I'm ready to go.
Pardon?
I'm ready to go. So,
Okay.
folks, welcome to the 2019 Trolley Fest. Brought to you by John and Jan Haggis, Darby Historical Commission. My name is Scott Bates. I've been the long-term tour guide on these things, trolley activist. We're riding in a 1947 St. Louis Car Company built PCC model. These were the most famous, most popular trolleys ever built. They were an answer to buses. They were also leading edge of buses. Buses were built to try to copy this. They were smaller with the streamlined style, which was coming off of Art Deco airplane was copied by buses for many, many years. These cars were rehabilitated for the Route 15 line. They are running, these type are running successfully in San Francisco, Illinois, several other places in nostalgia-oriented service. The SEPTA service is actually a regular service operation on the 15 Girard Avenue. We're able to rent a car and take you on a tour on this wonderful line. We just passed St. James Church. That's the oldest church west of the Schuylkill River. It goes back to, I think, 1762, and was actually for the Swedish residents that were still here from New Sweden before our own William Penn came to Pennsylvania with his Quakers and other settlers. This area was some of the richest farmlands in Philadelphia by the Revolution, because it had been cultivated over 100 years by the Swedes, both along the river in the hidden in the Schuylkills, which means hidden rivers in Dutch, and they were farming and traveling on the water, but then they were gradually moving up onto the land here. Woodland Avenue was basically a settler's path from the mill that John was talking about, the Prince's Mill, the oldest mill industrial site of any kind in Pennsylvania. Also the beginning of Pennsylvania agriculture, which led in the Revolutionary period in the United States, is now the breadbasket of the world. So you can trace the industry that won the world wars to there, as well as the breadbasket of America, literally to that mill by various means. So this trail path would have been branching off the Native American path, the Great Mequas path. It was headed from the marshes down by the airport up to the Susquehanna River and the Susquehannocks, great Indian village and settlements along there. They were had subjugated the Lenape in this area, a story you don't hear from Quaker historians or Native Americans that survived so much, so that they could trade with the Dutch that both came down here to Philadelphia, the South River, as well as the North River, which was the Hudson, where their city was, New Amsterdam. So a lot of struggle to trade, to be the dominant native culture, to trade with the Europeans, and that pushed inland, and eventually the beaver trade went all the way on this trail, and some others, but this was the main one for much of it, all the way to the Great Lakes. They were trading beaver as the beaver were hunted out in this area. Now, what's ironic is the beaver are just returning now, just in the last 20 years. We're hearing the first reports, evidence, and then spotting of beaver coming back to this area. So that's a several hundred-year absence, large absence, as far as we know. Perhaps there were some around that we didn't know, but it's definitely
They are showing up on Ridley Creek.
Yeah, they're showing up all over the place. So, and they're going to and they have it on the creeks. They're natural dam builders, which is natural, but is not what some people want. And they can certainly do issues. So that great trade was the first international trade, really, with with the New World and the Old World. Beaver hats quite in demand. So we're coming up through the great Woodland Avenue shopping district. A lot of this descended from the old grill trolley factory, which was right here. Some of the buildings up at the end here are original J.G. Grill. Built more trolleys than anyone in the world at this factory, and they came right on in here. They had several gauges. They would switch out to the railroad. But this last strip of brick building here is part of the trolley factory, and you can see back behind here, and if you look very closely on the ground, you'll see trolley tracks back down in there and in some of the wooded or overgrown areas. This is the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad, now CSX East Coast Main Line. This is a later addition to the area. After the Pennsylvania Railroad had built the main line just over there. One reason Brill was here because they had access to two main lines, so they could compete for shipping. Originally, Brill was actually down by 30th Street, building small freight cars and other stuff, but then they moved out here. Baldwin's moved out from Broad Street, the greatest steam locomotive builder in the world. Moved down to Eddystone again to be, actually they had 3 railroads there, the Reading, the Pennsylvania, and the B&O was also available through the back. So this is the main freight line of CSX, up and down the East Coast to New York, and of course down to Baltimore and further Virginia, where they come from. Also, there's a crossing right up here to the right after this newer shopping center, and right in a moment we're going to cross the East Coast Greenway. I'm sorry, I didn't point out an old house on the right. You can maybe see it there. It's a white old house. There's one other lane. It's actually an industrial alley. You really can't see it. But there's another colonial house that was moved out of the way of the Baltimore and Ohio or the Pennsylvania. We're not sure which. It's a wooden house. They picked it up and moved it according to some of the residents that I interviewed that are no longer with us. And that's what they told us. And the lines of the house are very similar to the Bluebell Tavern. There's one other farmhouse I'm going to quickly point out that we passed that may be associated with Bartram. Yes, Bodger Street, that's correct. So there's only a handful of these older buildings left here. Again, this was farmland. You got a fire truck coming behind you. So you can see the East Coast Greenway Bikeway. It's the new wider path here going up, and that's going Maine to Florida across the B&O. That goes in the Bartram's Garden that way. 58th Street, which we just crossed over, is a connection to Chester Avenue. It used to be the end of another old line that went up and across the city up towards City Avenue, city line. So this is old railroad back shop areas now, other things. You see the factories here. Woodland further down where we just went through was very busy because of the Brill factory. There were something like 4 movie theaters down there. Up here was a little more industrial, but it's now emerged as an African market area. A lot of people that were born in Africa live here and have revitalized the street. So we're coming up on Bodger Street. We missed it. We missed it?
Yeah.
See, I'm out of practice. It's right up here. So Bodger Street, you see a little farmhouse.
No, it was back there.
Yeah, it was back there. Yes, we did. I'm sorry. I don't have my glasses today. But they believe that Bartram's driveway was somewhere about here. Perhaps it was at the farmhouse, but originally with Woodland Avenue being the oldest street in the area, back to Swedish times and all, the Bartram's Garden, which is now back on Lindbergh Avenue or Boulevard, it would have had a driveway all the way out to here. Although he had to assemble his property, he bought it from Swedes. Enlarged, there was an older building there, and he took it down and built on the same exact spot. So Bartram's Garden straight through over there. On the 36 trolley, a very good way to get to it. About one of the troop movements in the area. We are on what's called the W3R route, Woodland Avenue in this area, Frankfurt Avenue in northeast Philadelphia, goes through Center City, of course, was the march route, the main highways, but also the march route of the American and French armies when they were on their way to defeat the British at Yorktown. The British had been pinned at Yorktown by Lafayette, and they were waiting for the British fleet to pick them up on the other side, but the French fleet blocked the British. By the time Washington and Rochambeau got to Chester on the march, and they march about 10 miles a day, they did spend an extra day in Philadelphia in celebration and getting cleaned up and rested an extra day. By the time they got down to Chester, they had gotten the news that the French fleet indeed had block the British fleet from relieving the Southern Expeditionary Unit that the British had out there, and both armies were in joy and celebration because they realized this was going to be a major blow to the British if they could capture them in siege, which did happen, and effectively ended the war. We're now approaching, this is the Woodland car barn. The driver, the motorman, is using the old term they called operators now, and people commonly call them drivers, actually got out and threw the switch, I believe, with the switch iron, which is the old-fashioned way when they don't have an automatic switch. These tend to be switches that are not used very often. Not every other trolley goes a different way, but it's when the car may have turned up to go for the other car barn. So they do it for various operations. He's saying it's for the 34. This is a little remnant of the old Woodland car barn that burned down, and then the modern Woodland car barn that was built as a replacement. 100 trolleys or so were lost here in a fire, and it was quite a crisis. You can see two of the PCC cars right there for service. The bays, there's a transfer table which goes up and down, and they can put a trolley in a bay, and it goes in for heavy repairs. Woodland Avenue, while it's a modern building, is the oldest car barn site in the country remaining.